People often say that the mysterious Sigma male is antisocial, lives alone, and rebels without a cause. But in reality, he is simply someone who likes to be by himself and needs time alone to recharge and get things straight. Even though they might be more private than most people, they still have their own limits that should be respected. Here are 11 things you should never say to a Sigma male. 1. You're too quiet and shy. Sigma men have been told their whole lives that they are quiet or shy. People often use the word shy to mean reserved, but the two are not the same. In spite of what most people think, Sigma males aren't necessarily shy. They just prefer to listen and learn from others rather than talk too much when it's not necessary. They like to watch first before starting to talk. Don't assume anything about Sigma men based on the fact that they don't talk much. In the right setting, they can be very friendly. People might mistake Sigma's quietness for arrogance or lack of interest, but that's not at all what's going on. He doesn't talk much, but that doesn't mean he doesn't want to talk. But if he gets close to someone, he could talk for hours about something he's really interested in. Most Sigma males like to stay out of sight and don't like to be the center of attention. They don't try to be too loud or the center of attention. This doesn't mean they aren't sure of their own skills. It just means they don't need other people to back them up. 2. Stop overthinking. Sigma men often look like they are lost in thought because they think a lot and think about many different things. Many people mistake this for daydreaming, but it's actually a great way for Sigmas to get ideas. Daydreaming is when your mind goes off on its own, but deep thinking is when you explore ideas in a planned way. It's a way for Sigma males to show how creative they are and figure out what's going on in the world. They can use their imaginations and come up with new ideas when they think deeply. It gives them a break from real life and gives them some much-needed time alone. People often say that they are lazy or unproductive when they think too much, but nothing could be further from the truth. Most people stick to routines and go with the flow, but Sigma does best when they can think outside the box. Telling them to stop daydreaming is like telling them to stop being themselves. It limits their creativity and makes them stop being themselves. They need to be able to think about what they want without being stopped. So instead of trying to figure out how they think, try to see how some people can benefit from using their imagination. When it comes to how they think, Sigma men don't like being told what to do. Because of the way they think, they are often misunderstood and given names. 3. This is way out of your league. Sigma men are very skilled and can often do things that other people think are too hard. Telling someone they can't do something, even if it seems impossible, is not only condescending but also low-balling. Sigma men like to take on difficult tasks that other people might find scary. They have a lot of potential and are good at solving hard problems, so it's important not to put them in a box by saying things like this. It can make them feel unappreciated and alone, even if they do the job anyway. If you say this to a Sigma, you won't be on their list of friends for long. They don't need people who bring them down or think they can't do something. They surround themselves with people who have big goals and will help them reach them. You look like a bad influence and someone who doesn't believe in them if you try to limit their potential. No one wants that, to be honest. 4. You're antisocial. This statement is usually said in a mean way, implying that someone is to blame for the way they act in social situations. Sigma men often seem unfriendly because they don't like to make small talk or talk about things that don't matter. They'd rather have deep conversations and interactions than talk about things that are just on the surface. This doesn't mean that they can't be social when they want to be. It just means that they try to stay out of the spotlight by default. Sigma men don't mind being alone, and many of them enjoy it. They use this time to think about things and get their energy back. They don't have to be around people all the time. They can be happy on their own. Everyone's social behavior is different, so it's best not to jump to conclusions about someone's personality. Some people like to talk about small things, while others like to talk about big things. We shouldn't judge someone if they aren't hurting themselves or others. 5. You don't say enough about yourself. Sigma men are very in touch with their feelings, but they often hide them behind a mask of stoicism. People might think they aren't expressing themselves enough, but this couldn't be further from the truth. Sigma men tend to keep their feelings to themselves because it's easier for them to deal with them on their own. They don't have to show how they feel to have meaningful relationships with other people. They can still have strong relationships even if they don't talk about their feelings all the time. Even though they don't say what they're thinking and feeling, that doesn't mean they don't know. Sigma men prefer to take the time they need to work through their feelings and deal with them in their own way, without feeling pressured by other people. Even though it might seem like they're not talking enough, everyone processes things in their own way. 6. What's wrong with you? This kind of question is often asked in a way that seems to judge or criticize, so it's best not to ask it of Sigma. Questions like this could be seen as a way to take advantage of someone's feelings, which could make them feel bad. Sigma men have been misunderstood and labeled their whole lives. Because of this, they tend to be more guarded and less likely to talk about their feelings and thoughts. Most people can't understand how they think, so they don't bother trying to explain it. People often feel like they can't get close to them because their mind is always working and analyzing. If you ask a Sigma what's wrong with him, you might seem like a simple-minded person who doesn't understand how complex people think. 7. Don't give advice that wasn't asked for. Many people think that these guys don't need help because they can seem scary and hard to talk to. This isn't true. Sigma men may be independent thinkers, but they still value advice from people who have been through similar things. But they don't like getting advice they didn't ask for because it can feel like someone is trying to force their opinion on them. Sigmas like to figure out how to solve problems on their own, so they don't need anyone to tell them what to do. Unless they ask for help, you should let them figure things out on their own. They are usually very resourceful and good at finding solutions to hard problems. They have their own ideas and don't need other people to back them up. They don't want to be told what to do and how to think all the time. They'll ask for help if they need it. If someone hasn't asked for your advice, it's best not to give it because it can come across as patronizing or condescending. They need to be left alone so they can think for themselves and make their own decisions. 8. Why are you so full of yourself? People who don't know much about Sigmas often think they are cocky because they don't understand how they think. Even though they have strong opinions and aren't afraid to say what they think, this doesn't make them arrogant or better than anyone else. They don't think they're better than anyone else. Instead, they prefer to stand up for what they believe in and what they think is right. People often think that self-confidence is the same thing as arrogance, but this is not true at all. They don't try to hide who they are, and they can be very passionate about what they believe, but that doesn't make them arrogant. Sigma men want to be real, and this shows in how they live their lives. They don't bother to explain themselves to people who don't understand, so asking this question may leave you with more questions than answers. 9. That's not the way it works. Sigma men are different and often look at life in a different way. They don't always do things the way everyone else does, and they like to think outside the box when they do things. Not only is it pointless to tell a Sigma male that their idea won't work, but it's also naive because you don't know how much they can do. Sigma men are often looked down on, but their ideas often work, which takes everyone by surprise. We can be blinded by our own expectations and ideas, so it's important to keep an open mind when listening to what other people have to say. This is how the Sigma way of thinking works. They don't like being tied down by rules and expectations. They want to be able to explore, try new things, and think for themselves without being limited by how things are usually done. Sigma men value their independence and will always make sure it is respected. 10. You need to change. Sigma men have a strong sense of who they are and a set of values that they stick to. Asking them to change who they are or how they think is not only disrespectful to them, but also to what they stand for. Sigma men are not the kind of people who are easily swayed or who like to follow the crowd. Instead, They value independence and freedom. Telling a Sigma man they need to change can make it seem like you don't accept them for who they are, which is something no one wants. They can always work on themselves and get better, but it should be because they want to, not because they are forced to. Sigma men are proud of what makes them different and like it when others do the same. So it's important to show them respect and acceptance and try to see things from their point of view instead of telling them what to do. Even though it seems like a small thing, it can change how Sigma sees you and how he feels about your relationship. 11. You should try to be like everyone else. They like being free and independent, so telling them to fit in or conform goes against everything they believe in. They live life on their own terms, even when it's not easy, and they'll never change their values to make other people happy. They don't try to impress people or fit into a certain mold, and they don't expect everyone to like them. If you ask a Sigma to fit in, they might feel like they have to give up who they are, which is something they don't want to do. Even if they know how important it is to be part of a group and aren't totally against it, they don't like the idea of having to change who they are to fit in. Sigma men always choose to be themselves over fitting in, and they will never give up their values to make someone else happy.